I used to joke that my paycheck had a family tree. It always split itself into branches before it ever reached me. I lived in a small one-bedroom in Chicago, worked long hours in a logistics office near the river, and still somehow ended every month feeling like I had nothing to show for it. Not because I was reckless. Because the minute I caught my breath, someone in my family was drowning. My mom, Diane, lived 2 suburbs away in a tired duplex that always needed something fixed. She wasn't a bad person. She just leaned on me the way a door leans on a weak hinge, every day, a little more, until it's all pressure and no balance. Just this once, she'd say, and I'd send the money before she finished the sentence. My youngest brother, Kyle, couldn't keep up with tuition. My older brother, Marcus, always had a short gap between jobs. Uncle Ray said his truck was in the shop again. Cousin Tasha was trying to get back on her feet for the 4th time. At first, it didn't feel like a trap. It felt like being the dependable one. The mature one. The girl who made it out and came back with her hands full of groceries and receipts and quiet pride. I told myself it was love. I told myself it was normal. In our family, you didn't leave anyone behind. You just didn't talk about what it cost you. Then the requests started to arrive with less softness. They stopped being careful. Nobody asked if I was tired, if work was going okay, if I was eating right. When my phone lit up with Mom's name, my stomach would tense automatically, like my body already knew it wasn't going to be a real conversation. And it never was. It was rent. It was a late fee. It was the water bill. It was, I don't want to ask, but... I remember one particular Sunday at my aunt's place on the south side, the kind of gathering that pretends it's about family when it's really about watching who brings what. Everyone was laughing, music on low, paper plates bending under fried chicken and macaroni. Marcus slapped my shoulder and said, loud enough for everyone to hear, if we ever get rich, it's because of her. People laughed like it was a compliment. Aunt Sheila smiled and said, our little ATM. And it hit me, sharp and cold, how normal it sounded coming out of her mouth. I smiled anyway. I laughed too. Because I didn't want to be the difficult one. I didn't want to be the girl who made things awkward. I kept telling myself the same story, they'll appreciate it later. They'll remember. They'll show up when you need them. Loyalty always comes back around. But it didn't come back around. It kept moving in one direction, toward them. The bigger my salary got, the bigger their emergencies became. When I got a promotion and mentioned it at dinner, the mood changed fast. Not jealous exactly. More like, interested. Like they were already doing math in their heads. Mom started talking about how she'd always wanted to get her teeth fixed. Kyle suddenly needed a better laptop. Uncle Ray brought up a lawsuit that might happen and needed just a cushion. Even the cousins I barely spoke to started sliding into my messages with casual, hey girl, and long paragraphs that ended with a number. I learned to keep my good news quiet. If I bought myself something small, a decent winter coat, a nicer phone, I would feel guilty, like I'd stolen it. Like I had taken money out of someone else's pocket. That's the part no one tells you about being the provider. Eventually, you start believing the lie too. And still, I didn't complain. I told myself I was strong. I told myself that being needed was the same as being loved. I didn't notice how my life was shrinking, how my dreams were turning into maybe later, how my own future felt like an item I kept pushing to the bottom of the list. I noticed other things, though. I noticed how quickly they responded when I sent money, and how slowly they responded when I sent anything else. I noticed how my birthday came and went with a few emojis and one late phone call from Mom asking, "Did you see the electric bill I forwarded?" I noticed that nobody had ever asked me what I wanted. Not once, not seriously. I kept going anyway, because stopping felt impossible. Because I had trained them. Because I had trained myself. And because, deep down, I still believed that one day they'd look at me and see more than what I could give. It wasn't one big moment that changed things. It was a series of small humiliations that finally added up. Like when I showed up to Kyle's graduation after paying for the last 2 semesters, and he hugged everyone except me because he was too busy taking pictures with his friends. Or when Marcus called me sis in that sweet tone only when he was about to ask for something. Or when Mom would talk about my attitude if I hesitated for even a second. The worst part was holidays. Thanksgiving was a performance every year. I'd be on the road after work, tired, stopping by a grocery store because Mom insisted the turkey had to be a certain brand. Then I'd arrive to a house full of people who acted like I was a guest, but still handed me problems like I was staff. Can you run back out and grab ice? Can you order extra pies? Can you spot me until Friday? Half the time, someone would joke about my fancy job while I was Venmoing them gas money. One Christmas, I paid for matching pajamas for everyone because Mom said it would make a cute photo. The picture turned out nice. Everyone posted it. Nobody tagged me. When I mentioned it, Aunt Sheila laughed and said, "You always want credit." Like wanting to be seen was a character flaw. I started noticing how my presence was optional but my money wasn't. If I couldn't come to a family dinner, nobody cared. But if I couldn't send a transfer, suddenly I was different, cold, acting brand new. I realized I was being kept close the way people keep a charger close, only important when the battery is low. One night, after I came home from Mom's place, I sat on the edge of my bed in my quiet apartment and stared at the ceiling. The room was clean. Too clean. Like nobody lived there. I had built a life that was functional, not joyful. Work, bills, family rescue missions. That was it. No hobbies. No trips. No dating. Not because I didn't want those things, but because I never had the space to want anything. Every time I tried, someone needed me. I tried to talk about it once. Just once. We were in Mom's kitchen, and I was washing dishes while she sat at the table scrolling on her phone. I told her I was stressed, that I felt like I couldn't breathe, that I didn't know how much longer I could keep doing this. She didn't even look up. She sighed like I was inconveniencing her and said, "You're always dramatic. You don't even have kids. Try being me." That sentence did something to me. Not like a slap. More like a door closing quietly. Because I realized she didn't care how heavy it was for me. She only cared that I kept carrying it. After that, it got easier for them to cross lines. Marcus started asking for larger amounts and giving less explanation. Kyle started acting like my money was a given, like my job existed to support him. My cousins called less to chat and more to check in, which was just code for checking my availability to pay. I found myself rehearsing excuses before answering the phone. I started lying about overtime, about unexpected bills, about my bank freezing transfers. Not because I didn't have the money, but because I wanted them to feel a tiny taste of what it was like to be told no by life. And every time I delayed, even politely, the tone would change. They'd get sharp. Passive-aggressive. It must be nice. Guess we know where we stand. Don't worry about it, we'll figure it out, like always. The guilt was always waiting, ready to swallow me whole. I kept thinking there would be a natural end to it. Like they would become stable. Like they would grow up. Like the help I provided would actually help them. But it wasn't helping them build anything. It was helping them avoid responsibility. It was keeping their habits alive. My therapist, yes, I finally got one, mostly because I was having trouble sleeping, told me something that stuck. She said, "You're not supporting them. You're sustaining them. There's a difference." Support is a bridge. Sustaining is life support. I didn't want to accept that. It felt cruel. It felt like betrayal. But then, on a random Tuesday, Mom called and asked for money for a small repair. I sent it. Later that day, my cousin posted a story from a steakhouse with Mom and Aunt Sheila, laughing over cocktails. The caption said, "We needed this." I stared at my phone so long my screen dimmed. It wasn't the steakhouse. It was the casualness. The entitlement. The fact that my sacrifice had become their lifestyle, and nobody thought I deserved basic honesty. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just felt something settle in me, like a decision being made without drama. The love I had been chasing had conditions, and I had been paying the membership fee every month. The morning it happened, it was snowing lightly, the kind of gray Chicago morning where the sky looks like it's pressing down on the city. I was standing in line for coffee, half awake, scrolling my banking app without thinking. I saw the outgoing payments lined up like little bites taken out of my life: Mom's utilities, Kyle's phone plan, Marcus's loan repayment, 2 streaming subscriptions I didn't even use because my cousins had the passwords, and 3 credit cards that weren't in my wallet at all. I stared at that list and felt embarrassed. Not by them. By me. By how normal it had become for other people to live inside my finances like they belonged there. Back at my apartment, I set my coffee down, opened my laptop, and pulled up everything: accounts, cards, automatic transfers. I was calm in a way that surprised me. No shaking hands, no tears. Just a quiet focus. Like cleaning up after a long mess. I started with the easiest part, the cards. I froze each one linked to my account, one by one, staring at the confirmation messages as if they were locks clicking shut. Then I removed the auto payments. I canceled the subscriptions. I changed passwords. I updated security questions with answers nobody could guess. When I finished, I sat back and waited for the guilt to attack me. It didn't, not right away. Instead, there was this strange peace, like when you turn off a loud fan and suddenly hear your own thoughts again. I went to work. I answered emails. I sat through a meeting about shipping delays and pretended my world hadn't shifted. Around noon, I even laughed at a coworker's joke. I remember thinking, is this what freedom feels like? Quiet. Normal. At 3:12 p.m., my phone rang. It was Marcus. I didn't answer. At 3:14, Kyle texted, "Yo, did your card get hacked? My payment didn't go through." At 3:18, my mom called. I let it ring until voicemail. By 3:30, the group chat that usually stayed silent for weeks suddenly came alive like a hornet's nest. Messages stacked so fast I could barely read them. Who turned off the card? I'm at the gas station. Don't play with me right now. Call Mom. She's freaking out. This is embarrassing. Fix it. Not one message said, "Are you okay?" Not one asked what happened. The assumption was immediate: this was a technical problem, and I was the tech support. I kept my phone face down on my desk and tried to breathe. My heart was pounding, not because I regretted it, but because I knew what was coming. I had seen their panic before, but never directed at me like this. When my shift ended, I drove home in slow traffic, watching headlights smear across wet streets. I told myself I could explain calmly. I told myself I would be firm, respectful. I even rehearsed lines at red lights. I will no longer be paying for anyone's expenses. I love you, but I can't do this anymore. I need to focus on my own life. The moment I walked into my apartment building, my phone buzzed again. Mom. This time I answered. Where are you? She snapped. No hello, no concern, just anger tight in her voice. I'm coming home, I said carefully. You need to turn those cards back on, she said. Right now. Your uncle is at the pharmacy and his prescription got declined. Do you know how it looks? I leaned against the stairwell wall and stared at a chipped paint spot, like it could keep me steady. I turned them off on purpose. Silence. Then a sharp inhale. What do you mean, on purpose? I mean I'm done, I said, and my voice sounded more stable than I felt. I'm not paying for everybody anymore. Her tone flipped instantly into that wounded, dramatic voice she used when she wanted to make me the villain. So you're just abandoning us? I'm not abandoning anyone, I said. I'm setting a boundary. A boundary? She repeated like it was a swear word. After everything we've done for you. That line made me almost laugh. Almost. Because it was so predictable. The debt they claimed I owed was never real, it was just useful. I tried again. Mom, I've been supporting everyone for years. I can't keep doing this. I'm exhausted. She didn't soften. She got colder. Well, I hope you're happy. Because you've ruined your family today. Then she hung up. I stood there in the stairwell, phone still pressed to my ear, feeling something crack open inside me, not sadness exactly, more like recognition. I had just said the truth out loud, and her response wasn't worry. It wasn't understanding. It was punishment. By the time I reached my apartment door, my phone was buzzing non-stop. Kyle calling. Aunt Sheila calling. Uncle Ray sending voice notes. Cousin Tasha typing furious paragraphs. I unlocked the door, stepped into my quiet living room, and closed it behind me. That's when I realized the peace from earlier wasn't gone. It was just being tested. And deep down, I already knew, 6 hours was all it took for them to show me exactly what I meant to them when the money stopped. The next morning, I woke up to a phone that felt heavier than usual. Dozens of missed calls. Messages stacked on top of each other like bricks. I didn't open them right away. I made coffee, stood by the window, watched people scrape ice off their cars and go on with their lives. It was strange how normal the world looked while mine was being torn apart through a screen. When I finally sat down and started reading, the tone was clear. Confusion had turned into accusation overnight. Marcus wrote that I had humiliated him in public. Kyle said I'd left him stranded and made him look irresponsible. Aunt Sheila accused me of turning my back on family values. Uncle Ray sent a long message about loyalty, about how blood was thicker than money, which was ironic coming from someone who only ever reached out when he needed cash. My mom's messages were the hardest. Not because they were emotional, but because they were transactional. She listed bills. Rent. Groceries. Medication. As if presenting an invoice would force me back into place. There was no, "Are you okay?" No, "What made you do this?" Just pressure, layered with disappointment and guilt. She ended one message with, "I didn't raise you to be like this." That sentence stayed with me all day. Not because it hurt, but because it revealed something important. In her mind, who I was supposed to be had nothing to do with my happiness. It had everything to do with my usefulness. By midday, the messages got uglier. The word selfish appeared more than once. Someone accused me of letting money change me. Another cousin hinted that I thought I was better than everyone else now. It was like watching a group agreement form in real time. I was the problem. I had broken the unspoken contract. I tried to respond calmly at first. I explained that I wasn't cutting anyone off emotionally, just financially. I said I needed to focus on my own life. I said I'd helped as much as I could for as long as I could. My messages were met with silence, or worse, screenshots shared back to me with sarcastic comments. That's when it stopped feeling like a misunderstanding and started feeling like punishment. They weren't trying to understand. They were trying to pressure me back into compliance. Later that evening, Mom showed up at my apartment without calling. I recognized her knock immediately, sharp, impatient. I opened the door, and she walked past me like she owned the place. She stood in the middle of my living room, arms crossed, eyes scanning everything, as if measuring what I had instead of listening to what I was about to say. "So this is where all our money's been going," she said. That did it. Not yelling. Not crying. Just that sentence. I felt something in me harden. I told her, calmly, that it was my money. That I worked for it. That helping didn't mean owning me. She laughed. Not kindly. "Don't rewrite history," she said. "We're your family. You owe us." Oh. That word sat between us like a final verdict. No room for love in it. No room for choice. When she left, she didn't hug me. She didn't say goodbye. She just told me not to expect anyone to be there when I needed something. The door closed behind her, and for the first time, I didn't chase after it. That night, I blocked the group chat. Not out of anger, but out of self-preservation. The gratitude I thought existed had burned off completely, leaving only resentment behind. And somehow, seeing it so clearly hurt less than believing in a lie. The days after were quiet in a way I wasn't used to. No constant buzzing. No urgent calls. No last-minute transfers. The silence was thick, almost physical, and at first it scared me. I kept reaching for my phone out of habit, like I'd forgotten something important. But what I was really missing wasn't them. It was the role I had played for so long that I didn't know who I was without it. Invitations stopped completely. I found out through social media that there had been a family dinner at Aunt Sheila's. Everyone was there. Smiling. Tagged. The caption said something about real families sticking together. I stared at the photo longer than I should have, looking for signs of discomfort, guilt, anything. There was none. That's when it hit me that I wasn't being missed. I was being replaced. Not emotionally, but financially. They were scrambling, adjusting, borrowing elsewhere. And instead of reflection, there was blame. It was easier to turn me into the villain than to admit they had depended on me too much. I went through memories like boxes in storage. Moments I once thought proved love now looked different. The praise that always followed a transfer. The affection that disappeared when I said no. The way conversations ended once the money issue was resolved. It all made sense in a painful, logical way. Grief showed up unexpectedly. Not loud, dramatic grief. Quiet grief. The kind that hits while you're folding laundry or waiting at a red light. I wasn't mourning arguments or lost holidays. I was mourning the family I thought I had. The one I believed would protect me the way I had protected them. There were moments I almost went back. When guilt crept in late at night and whispered that maybe I could help just a little. That maybe cutting everyone off at once was too extreme. But every time I imagined reopening that door, my chest tightened. My body knew what my mind was still learning. I started therapy more regularly. Not to talk about them, at first, but to talk about me. About why I had equated love with sacrifice. About why being needed felt safer than being known. About why I had ignored my own limits for so long. One afternoon, my therapist asked me a simple question: if they had never needed your money, would they still be close to you? I didn't answer right away. I didn't need to. That realization hurt more than any insult they had thrown at me. Because it meant the connection had always been conditional. And conditions aren't love. They're contracts. Slowly, something shifted. The sadness didn't disappear, but it changed shape. It became lighter. Less sharp. I stopped checking their profiles. I stopped waiting for apologies that weren't coming. I let myself accept the truth instead of fighting it. And in that acceptance, there was relief. I wasn't performing anymore. I wasn't auditioning for a place at the table. I was finally allowed to exist without paying for the privilege. Rebuilding my life didn't happen all at once. It happened in small, quiet choices that added up. Saying no without explaining. Spending money on things that made my days easier instead of harder. Letting myself rest without feeling guilty for it. I took a weekend trip by myself, something I'd never done before. Nothing fancy. Just a train ride, a cheap hotel, long walks with no one asking me for anything. I realized how much of my energy had been spent anticipating other people's needs instead of listening to my own. There were still moments of doubt. Especially when my mom sent a short message weeks later that just said, "Hope you're happy." No apology. No conversation. Just another attempt to make my peace feel like cruelty. I didn't respond. Not because I didn't care, but because I finally understood that explaining myself wouldn't change anything. I started setting real boundaries, not just with my family, but everywhere. At work. With friends. With myself. I learned that saying yes when you mean no doesn't make you kind. It makes you resentful. And resentment is what had almost destroyed me. Over time, my identity stopped revolving around what I provided. I was more than a solution. More than a backup plan. I made room for friendships that didn't come with invoices. Conversations that didn't end in requests. Laughter that wasn't followed by guilt. The loneliness didn't vanish, but it softened. It became the kind of loneliness that comes with growth, not abandonment. The kind that makes space for something new instead of clinging to what never really existed. I didn't get an apology. I didn't get closure in the way movies promise. What I got was clarity. And that was enough. I didn't lose my family the day I turned off the cards. I lost an arrangement that was draining the life out of me. And in walking away from that, I finally chose myself, without apology, without negotiation, and without regret.